friends, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing another ranking video. I got the idea to do these ranking videos based off of a poll that I posted on my Instagram stories a couple weeks ago, which, by the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, I'm going to leave my handle somewhere here. Make sure and give me a follow, Glitz by Day. And I was curious to see how many of you enjoy using your makeup sponge or beauty sponge versus a brush for your makeup application, which could be your foundation or your concealer, whatnot. And the results weren't too far off. I'll put in a picture of the poll somewhere here. I've also just filmed ranking my foundation brushes. So I'm not quite sure if that video is going to go up before or after this one. If it is already up, I'll link it here in the cards below or somewhere in the description box, so you can check that out if you are a foundation brush user. So yeah, let's get right into it today. Today I'm going to be talking about both high-end and drugstore beauty sponges and giving you my thoughts on which ones are my favorite. So let's go ahead and start off with the high-end sponges, because I think I have less of those. Well, there's only 5, so 2 of those are going to be my high-end. And let's start off with talking about a kind of cult classic or OG favorite beauty sponge, and that is the original Beauty Blender, which has been around 4 years at this point. Mine is one of the jewel tone ones, so it's not the, the classic pink sponge, but it's the same concept. And if I'm not mistaken, this sponge was actually the first of its kind when it was released. It was super innovative, and mine is dry right now, so if it doesn't look as big as yours might, that's why. And this sponge retails for $20, so pretty hefty price compared to the variety of sponges, beauty sponges that we have now. At the time when it was released, this was kind of the sponge to be using. And to be honest, I used the Beauty Blender for several years. I enjoyed it at the time. It was, my holy grail. But then again, I really didn't have much to compare it to. So as time went on and I started using other sponges, I started drifting away from the beauty sponge for 2 reasons. Number one, price. So a lot of drugstore brands started coming out with less expensive beauty sponges, and that fit more my budget. And I found other sponges to actually work better than this one. So I'm going to rank it in terms of my ranking of my high-end sponges, and then I'll rank it in the whole as a whole out of all the sponges that I have. So some of the things that I don't like about this sponge and why it's not my number one anymore is, number one, the price. But then my other beauty sponge, which I'm going to talk about right now, is kind of similarly priced. So but that is a factor. And number two, I do feel like this sponge picks up or absorbs a lot more product compared to some of the other sponges that I have. I feel like I end up needing to go in with more product, and when you do that, you're going through your product faster, meaning you need to repurchase it faster, meaning you're spending more money in the long run. I find it to be a little too soft when it's damp. I probably should have dampened this before I sat down to film this video. Pores in it are quite big, which leads to more absorption of the product. The other high-end sponge that I have is the Elsi Velvet sponge. And if you've been here on my channel for a while, you'll know this is my absolute number one favorite sponge. Drugstore and high-end, this is the sponge. I've gone through maybe 3 or 4 of these sponges since I started using it, and I do have a backup because this does sell out. So recently restocked, and it sold out within like less than a day, and it was on pre-sale. So when I order these, I order them 2 at a time just because they sell out, and then if I run out, I don't know what to do with myself, and I don't feel like my makeup applies the same when I'm not using this sponge. The price on this is $19, so it is a high end, not too far off from the Beauty Blender. So $20, $19, I mean, pretty much the same price. One of the things that I do love about this is, number one, I love the tip. Okay, this, and I didn't wash mine because I use it. So this tip for me fits perfectly right in here, also here by my nose, and I feel like less powder gets into my eyes when I use something like the Beauty Blender, which you can see the tip comparing them. This one is quite wider. And I don't have as much control. The other thing that I like about this sponge is the shape of it. So you can use the bottom as foundation application. To be honest, I mostly use this for concealer and powder, but you do have that option to use this kind of round flat side for your foundation. And I love this divot. Again, the shape of it is innovative. I haven't seen any other sponge really like this. So it just fits into my finger when I hold it, and more so when it's wet or when it's damp. Again, this is dry, it doubles in size, and it's just more comfortable to hold. When it's damped, the pores in it are significantly smaller compared to the Beauty Blender, which means it's not going to absorb or pick up as much of your product, and you're not going to have to use as much product when you're applying your makeup. So that is a major plus for me. This sponge is available on the Elsie website and also available at Ulta. I think it's sold out on the Ulta website right now, and I'm not sure if it's sold out on Elsie Cosmetics, or it might be on pre-order. But I'll leave the link below. Let's talk about my drugstore sponges. So I have 3 here with me that I am going to be ranking as part of this video, but there are 2 other sponges that I do want to talk about real quick, because I have tried them before and they're not my collection. So I mean, that is kind of self-explanatory. They're not quite my favorite. And those 2 are the Real Techniques Beauty Sponge, the orange one, and the Morphe one. The Morphe one I did not like at all. I've used it once. I don't think it's worth it. And the Real Techniques sponge, I do prefer it over the Morphe, but again, not my favorite. They are more drugstore pricing. I think they're around $8 to $10. So they're fairly similar, and they both have kind of the same shape, or not really. Oh, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure the Real Techniques has like a flat side to help with the powder. And then the Morphe one, I'll put pictures of them here, has kind of a weird like half oval shape. Anyway, let's talk about some e.l.f. sponges. So I have 2 different ones here. Let's start off with the e.l.f. Total Face Blending Sponge. And this guy retails for $6. Again, mine is not damped because I haven't used it. And this sponge, for the price, and I think if you're in a pinch, it's not a bad sponge. However, I do have another sponge that is similarly priced that I prefer way more than this one. I used this sponge in a couple of my e.l.f. Videos that I've done. I want to say I picked it up last year, and since then I've used it several times, and like I said, it's okay. But when I'm comparing it to the other sponges that I have, it's really not high up there for me. I find it to be similar to the Beauty Blender in that it is a little bit too soft for me when it's damp, and the pores on this are quite large. It's a very porous sponge, meaning the little holes in it are going to absorb a lot more of your product, and again, you end up using more product than you actually need, in my opinion. So that's the e.l.f. Total Face Blending Sponge. The other e.l.f. sponge that I've actually recently picked up. This is the Camo Concealer Sponge, and this one also retails for $6. And this is the newest one to my collection. I've actually only used this once or twice. You can see it looks used because I actually used it today. And I'll say this, I like it more than the Total Face Sponge. I feel like this one's less porous, so it doesn't pick up as much product, but it is still pretty porous. It's pretty squishy, so if you like a squishy sponge, this may be something that you enjoy. This one is damp because, like I said, I just used it. And I used this with my Tarte Shape Tape Concealer today. And as you can see, I don't know if it's coming off on camera, my concealer doesn't look as, my under eyes are not as concealed as I would like them to be. I feel like I do have some of that darkness peeking through. Mind you, I went in with 2 or 3 layers of my Tarte Shape Tape. And if you've used Tarte Shape Tape, you know that's a pretty heavy duty concealer. So for me to go in with at least 2 layers and it still be like this and not covering up that darkness, that's a no for me. Look how much was picked up on the sponge. So again, not as porous as the Total Face Sponge, but still porous enough to where I'm just going to be blowing through more product than I really need to. And this is $6 if I haven't mentioned that. Okay, so the next sponge that we're going to be talking about, and this is also a drugstore priced sponge, and oh, wait, this isn't the one that I wanted. Hold on. Okay, well, this is weird. So the last sponge that we're going to talk about is my favorite drugstore price sponge. And this sponge is an oldie but a goodie, and you may remember this sponge going viral a couple years ago. I think Nikki Tutorials, if I'm not mistaken, was the one that had it go viral. And this is from Juno & Co. And this is their microfiber sponge. This is confusing. So this one is the lemon drop sponge, which is actually not the one that I thought it was. I swear I had one of their just original microfiber one, but I can't seem to find it. I might have just given it to my sister, which means I get to go and buy a new one. But the one that I'm talking about, I'm going to insert a picture somewhere here. It has kind of a flat side similar to the Real Techniques sponge, so that's one that I would recommend, and it's $6. Juno & Co. I think as of now has a couple of different sponges. They have that original one in a variety of colors, like in lavender, pink, blue, yellow. They have this lemon drop one, and they also have a cloud makeup sponge, which I have and I've never used. Just similar, I feel like, in texture to the Elf Camo sponge. This one's maybe a bit denser, but the one I'm referring to today is the original microfiber sponge, and that one again is $6. It's actually available at Target now. Back in the day you can only get it online. And the number one thing that I love about that sponge, aside from the price, I mean it's $6, is the airbrush finish that you get with using it. Something about that velvet microfiber texture of the sponge beautifully distributes your product, whether it's your concealer or your foundation. Because it has kind of that velvet microfiber, it doesn't absorb as much as your product compared to something like the Elf or even the Beauty Blender. And I feel like maybe that's why I love the velvet sponge from Elsie as much, because they're both velvety textures. The Juno & Co. is definitely more velvety compared to the Elsie, but the pores on both of them are significantly smaller compared to the other brushes. Sorry, compared to the other sponges. So you get that airbrush finish, you're not using as much product, which means your product is gonna last longer, you're not gonna be spending as much money, and you're not gonna end up with a cakey makeup, concealer, or foundation. So guess who's making a Target run after this video to pick up that Juno & Co. sponge? Juno & Co. has actually expanded their brand quite a bit in the past several years. They have a cream that I want to try out. It's called like the Magic Cream or something like that. I think it's meant to be a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Cream that I really want to try, but side note. Let's reel it back in. So in terms of ranking, my number one sponge is going to be the Elsi Velvet sponge. This takes the trophy, takes the gold medal out of all the sponges that I have here. My number 2 is going to be the Juno & Co. Original Microfiber Velvet Sponge, $6. So quite a price difference, $19, $6. We've got something for every budget. And after these two guys, honestly, the 3 that I have left are kind of interchangeable. I would say if I would have to categorize them, I would say number 3 would be the original Beauty Blender. It's not quite as porous as the other 2. And then the Elf sponges, while not bad sponges, I just feel like for that price, I would much rather use the Juno & Co. because it's going to give me more of what I want out of my makeup, my foundation, my concealer. And that is the end of this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave me a comment below. Let me know if these types of videos are helpful for you in terms of ranking and also comparing drugstore and high-end. I also use a combination of drugstore and high-end for my brides with their bridal makeup, or, you know, when I'm doing makeup for events and stuff like that. So I don't think you need to necessarily spend a lot of money to get a good product. I love to find products that fit every budget, which is why I made a point to include both high-end and drugstore in this video, as well as my foundation brushes video and my foundation ranking video. This is your first time watching, welcome to my channel. Thank you for checking out my video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and like this video before you leave. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much. Also make sure that you are subscribed and hit the like button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.